Ben Farr for my first video. He's been one of my mentors for a long time and has some very interesting opinions just about millennials and the church in general. So Ben, why don't you just start off, tell me a little bit about your opinion on millennials, maybe both like a positive and a negative thing that you've noticed.
Sure. Well, technically, I'm a millennial. I was born in '87, so I'm an older millennial. I think I made it by like a year or two. So I associate myself with the millennials personally. I love millennials. I think it's probably a fantastic, one of the best generations naturally because I am one of them. But one positive thing I think is the access to information. We're more connected than ever with cell phones and technology and the internet and watches and virtual reality and glasses and all sorts of good stuff. So one of the huge positives is that we're more informed than ever. One of the reasons why I think higher education is completely worthless and a total ripoff because of how information is free, and including in the last few years, higher education is now free online. So that's one big positive is the access to information. I think on the flip side of that, the negative kind of is in the same category. Because of all that access and quickly and fast, it's kind of an entitled generation as well. So one of the negatives I think about this generation is the constant access to information. It's created a huge sense of entitlement. Being able to get entertainment, information, pleasure, visibility, all that stuff quickly and fast. It's created a certain sense of entitlement. And we see it a lot in social media, with the selfie phenomena. A lot of people have created in their own social circles a certain sense of celebrity within their own kind of pods or squads, having all the fancy photos and all that stuff. So biggest positive, informed, biggest negative, entitlement.
Interesting. Okay, so I guess it kind of goes into the next question. With a lot of statistics coming out about a decline in membership from millennials in the church and just a general lack of interest in the church, where do you kind of see the church going with that, and how do you see and or suggest the church change?
Yeah, I mean, I think the church needs to change or die at the end of the day. And I don't mean capital C church, the collective body of Christ church. I mean, lowercase c church, the building, the program, the songs, yeah. That part. The reason I say that is because we've been doing it the same way for hundreds of years. We have a few songs, a message, the tithe at the end with a closing song. Maybe we'll sprinkle in a testimony, and then on a blue moon we'll have communion. And that's pretty much how church is programmed across the board. You could go to any church in America, evangelical church in America, and you'll find that format. So I think we need to switch it up. Huge. Otherwise, we're not going to reach millennials. They're too impatient. They're way too ADD. And the current model is way too long and, to me personally, boring. I get bored in church all the time, to be honest. Yeah. And I get to hear some of the best preachers and pastors in the world. So I think we need to change things up. It's interesting. My dad is a roadie for a lot of big bands and stuff like that. And he was with Taylor Swift for a couple tours. And the tour designer, the guy who designed everything, his name's Dewey. Okay. And so I've gotten to know Dewey over the past couple of years as my dad has worked with him, and I've spent time with them and stuff. And I always thought it was interesting. Not a believer, at least I don't think, based on the language he used and the choice words. But, it's interesting. I've always wanted to ask Dewey, you know what would you do if you had a message that you wanted to share and you wanted people to walk away believing that message when they left? What would you do programmatically to reach, people? And I've always been curious on what he would say. The guy who designs Taylor Swift tours and the guy who designs, the tour that gets millions of people. She broke the record for the most profitable tour in history. And I always wondered what Dewey would say if I asked him, not how to do church, but if I had a message I wanted to share and I wanted people to believe it when they left, what would you do? So I think we need to look at programmatically, how we do church. Does it have to be on Sunday? Does it have to be once a week? Does it have to have music? Does it have to have a message? Those kind of things.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, that's a very good food for thought. Leading into my next question, I've kind of noticed one because of my friends, but also kind of in reading up a little bit about millennials and kind of they don't really see the need for mentorship, even though the Bible spells it out. And I think personally it has a lot to do with my generation wanting independence and wanting to do things their own way and not really liking being guided. So, from your opinion, what is a way that we can kind of help change that or get across the importance of mentorship and just what your experience has been with that?
Well, I think in personally, I think if we just get away from the word mentor, we'd be all set.
Yeah,
I think with millennials, a lot of times that word mentor, kind of is associated with authority and higher and more experience than you, and which wasn't always bad, but millennials don't want authoritative figures telling them what to do. So I think, my approach personally has been, and you've seen this, is more of a peer or a friend,
mm-hmm.
and trying to be a friend that under the table has a little bit more to say. So, when things come up, you can speak into it with a little bit more wisdom, just based on age and experience,
Yeah,
and not anything else. But so I think that approach is something that we need to kind of stick more to, and stop just saying, you need a mentor. You should get somebody older, wiser, and it just, I don't know. It takes away a certain sense of rawness and authenticity and a personal touch when you use
yeah,
the word mentor. Whereas if you're talking about a peer that is older, wiser, more experienced, I think that is the key. I think the thing with millennials is authenticity. I think at the end
mm,
of the day, it comes down to they want rawness and realness and authenticity.
yeah,
And I think across the board, if we stick to that, we'll do great because currently, right now, in Christianity as a whole, at least in America, authenticity is somewhat vacant.
yeah, yeah. Well, I will say, speaking from experience, I think you have mastered that ability, and it's been very helpful in my life. Well, thank you, Ben, for taking the time to sit down and have an interview with me. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon.